Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's Sybil on a special Dr. King Sing Sing Celebrate Day. I am Sybil Wilkes, and we are joined not only by our social justice contributor, Coy Malone, but special guest, George Wallace, here for a special memory segment of, no, we're not checking his memory. We just wanted him to share some memories of his days back during the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Yolanda Starks White is joining us, our producer extraordinaire. How is everybody?
Yay!
Oh, Yolanda Starks is with us. That is so fantastic.
All right, George.
I'm serious. It's always good to be on with you. I haven't talked to you, not on air in 1,000 years, but I'm with
Right.
you today.
I'm great. How you doing today?
I feel good all over. I'm in cold Atlanta. Well, it's not really cold. It's
Oh, you're
54
in
or something
Atlanta?
like that. Yes, I'm changing planes. I missed my plane because of some storms, and I'm in a makeshift suite right now. That's why I don't have light. That's why I'm not as light as you are today, because I'm light skinned.
Oh no, that's not why you're as light as I am. That's not why.
And the beautiful Coy, hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
Good, thank you. George, you are traveling to faraway lands.
Well, I'm on my way to Sydney, Australia. I'm going down under.
Oh, wow.
You guys love to travel too. I'm talking about travel more now than ever.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting into travel. I got a cousin that's done 60 cruises. Now she's done 86 cruises. Another cousin done 86 cruises. I don't know whether I want to do that many cruises, but I love
I
traveling.
Yeah, that's a bit much for me. But there are people now who have sold everything. They sold their homes, they sold their cars, and they are living on cruise ships.
You read about that, and then some people were not allowed to get on the ship because the ship was full. Isn't
Yeah,
that terrible? But
yeah.
they're spending 2 years on this round the world cruise. I think that's awesome, Sybil.
I don't know if I could do that. I do well for maybe a week, but I don't know about every day and getting off, doing some excursions and what have you. But I don't know.
Yeah, you're allowed to get off and get back on and go out, take another trip and go. But 2 years is a long time to go around the world. You're right, Sybil.
Yeah,
George, you can't do the Tom Joyner cruise for 7 days. I can't tell you the last time I did that. I got about 3 days in me.
Me too. Well, you know me, I'm on. You look for me one day on the cruise and they said, "Where's George? He's gone."
that's right. He got off before we even hit land.
With his orange life jacket on. He gone.
That's the way I see it. Boop, 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 boop.
That's the way it ought to be.
Coy, have you ever taken a cruise?
Not yet. I'm planning on it.
You are?
What did you say?
Not yet. I haven't. Not yet.
You haven't been on a cruise with a team yet?
No.
Oh my God.
You have to work up to that, George.
But she's coy.
I know, and that's why I'm saying you got to work up to that.
You would think
Coy,
I'd have all these people that would want to travel with me, and for some reason, a lot of my traveling I ended up doing by myself. I would like for that to change this year. That would be
Do
great.
you like traveling alone?
No, but
No.
I don't mind it. It's not what I prefer, but that's just how circumstances have played out for me.
I think you meet more
We'll say in the
people if you
past,
travel
because
alone.
this year is going to be different.
I think you meet more people if you travel alone. More people will come over and say hello to you. You go over and say hello to them. You meet more people. In some cases, 2 people is good. 3 people is an argument. 3 people is a problem. 3 people, somebody's going to sign for somebody, let's go do this, and you're going to think the other person talking about you and doing all kind of crazy things. So 3 is a crowd. 2 is good.
George is always good for encouraging people to travel, but we're like, okay, well, we're ready to go. Let's go. I can't. I'm going to Australia. I'm going to Thailand. I'm going. We're like, okay, well, let us know when we can all go. I think he's afraid that we're all going to do like what we did in South Africa and eat food and charge it to his room.
And embarrass me. But I might drop my pants again. You never know.
Yeah, that would be embarrassing.
Oh my
too.
gosh.
That would be embarrassing. That was another embarrassment in South Africa.
But
Well, let's talk.
Coy, I must say, Coy, if you ever get a chance to travel with all of us, you will really enjoy it. It'll be something you can never forget. We have nothing but fun, laughter, and fun.
I'm a great travel partner. I'm an
And
excellent
George is
travel
too.
partner.
George is too. He really is. He's a lot of fun. And George has traveled. George, I don't know how many passports you've gone through, but you've done your fair share, haven't you?
About 5 years ago, I went to the airport in Atlanta, and some smart ass guy, agent, my passport was torn just a little bit. Nope, you can't go. I had to spend a day in Atlanta and go back to the passport office and renew it.
Wow. Wow.
Terrible.
Wow.
I am so sorry.
So
They don't they don't know what they did to you, huh?
oh, they put me off the plane. I was going to Brazil. Actually, I got on the plane and got to Brazil, and they turned me back. That's what it was. They turned me. I had to come back to Atlanta.
In Brazil, they turned you away?
They kept me in. What is the thing they keep the people in, the illegal people?
Oh, wow.
Not
Oh,
jail, but in that little room, you know.
wow, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. Well, this is the day that we observe the life and times of civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we have done that in our newsletter. We're going to try to endeavor to do that with more stories as the week goes. But of course, this is January 15th. Today would have been his 95th birthday, and it is a national holiday on this third Monday in the month of January. And it just so happens that this year, the birthday is the national holiday is on his birthday. So
Right.
it's pretty cool. And as we're honoring this civil rights icon, as I said, a number of stories in the What You Need to Know newsletter are dealing with Dr. King and are showing some different sides of Dr. King, or perhaps looking at some topics, current topics that may have been a part of a conversation with Dr. King had he lived beyond his 39 years. Coy, tell us about a long ago speech given by Dr. King at Arizona State University that was lost but has been found.
Yes, so Dr. Martin Luther King delivered a speech at Arizona State University on June 3rd, 1964. And it may have been forgotten, but it still has relevance to today, to 2024. The speech was delivered in front of an audience of about 8,000 listeners. And this was just weeks before the Civil Rights Act was passed.
Mhm.
So what he's talking about is basically one of the lines in there that's very significant. Dr. King says is we must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. And he was basically speaking on the state of the US, how we were divided racially, how everything was segregated. And I feel like it still holds relevance to today because we're still dealing with a lot of different variations of segregation, discrimination, and racism in various different channels, platforms, ways of life, jobs, housing is still going on. So it kind of raises the question if we'll ever learn to live together as brothers and sisters. However, this tape of the original speech was lost for quite some time, and it remained undiscovered until 2013, and it was sent to the Arizona State University's archival department for restoration and transcription, and then it resurfaced as a valuable part of both the civil rights movement and Arizona's history. So there was quite some time that passed between the speech that was delivered and it being rediscovered in 2013, about 11 years ago.
Yes, doctor.
In Arizona, isn't this the last state to declare Dr. King a holiday?
I don't know that they have, but yeah, they were not very keen on the idea of making that a national holiday.
In Arizona. I
Arizona.
just think this day is so important. You mentioned that if Dr. King were alive today, I think he'd be disgusted and just as pissed. And I think he'd be really pissed at the word evangelicals, what they think and how they are pushing Trump. I think he'd be really disappointed if he were alive today.
Coy, do you know why or how this was lost and how it was found?
There wasn't a lot of information on that, so I don't understand how this tape was lost. Um, I don't want to speculate and say maybe that it was lost, destroyed on purpose. Who knows? But it was rediscovered and restored in 2013. So that's an interesting story to find out.
Right.
How did that happen? Because a lot of his speeches were either broadcasted on TV, they were broadcasted on radio, or they're printed in newspaper and print.
I do know, I remember when we were doing the old radio show and there was a discovery of a lot of King materials, speeches, and there were just, events and placards and things like that that were found in an associate's basement by the associate of Dr. King's child and
Mhm.
adult child. And so then there was some discussion about, well, who owns this, and how are you going to give it back to the King family or to the King Center? Or there was a lot of discussion. I don't know how they finally concluded that, but it might have been a case where whoever recorded the tape just took it home with them and then found it, or somebody else found it, because audio people, radio people, television people, and do have a habit of holding on to those things, old tapes, old sound checks, old, all of that kind of stuff. And then before you know it, you've got a basement full of crap, and
Right.
and people are, finally find, and they say, well, we don't even have like a reel to reel, which is what this would have been recorded on, right? A reel to reel tape player. And so you find one, and then you start, or you have it transferred to another form, and they're like, is that Dr. King? So it could have been that kind of situation.
Yes.
That's just really interesting. Before Dr. King's birthday was designated an official holiday in the early 1990s, there was a lot of discussion about making it a state holiday, commemorating the civil rights icon legacy. And a lot of places are closed in honor of the national holiday. But as far as the state is concerned, a lot of states early on held closed things down as part of a state holiday. I'm not sure about the state of Arizona, and they're so interesting anyway. That is one
Yeah.
of those states that like people always talk about crazy people in Florida. Arizona is one of those states, obviously. Coy, so what does this make you think when you saw the speech? Did it evoke any kind of emotion in you?
It just made me really think about our former presidents and a lot of the chaos
Yes.
that happened under his presidency, and how there's this almost awakening or reawakening of support for him. How a lot of people are saying that we were doing a lot better under that president, and things will be better if we just go back to this president. And I'm just like, are you really kidding me right now?
Right.
What have we learned? What have we learned about each other thus far? What was all of this for? What did we fight for our civil rights for? And it almost seems like it's for nothing. And so to see that this speech happened so many years ago, and we're in a position where I feel like the dream still hasn't been realized.
Right.
And Dr. Martin Luther King would be horribly upset to see how we're living right now. That it was just, we were given a couple little things here and there to be appeased, like, shut up here type of deal. To me, that's what it feels like.
Mm.
It might not be as bad in some ways, but in other ways, it is.
Yes. Totally.
Wow.
Especially talking about, I was talking about the preachers, the evangelicals, how they believe in wrong. Dr. King would have been very disappointed in that. Even Franklin Graham and all of these leaders, and he's it's just terrible now. In some ways, it's worse now, Coy. You're right. I think I know.
Mm-hmm.
I lived back. I rode the back of the bus. I did all of that stuff.
George, you were also at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You rode in the back of the bus.
Yes, Sybil. I'm from Atlanta. I'm born in the '50s, and I rode on the back of the bus in Atlanta before it was a.
So I know about the Birmingham bus boycott in 1955, 1956. But in Atlanta, did you all protest that too?
We did, but we never had a big problem in Atlanta. Our first riot in Atlanta was 3 years ago during COVID.
Wow.
The George Floyd, is that 3 years ago or
Hmm.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
That was our first riot ever. Atlanta has always been the city too busy to hate. So even when we had segregation, we were so For the independent, we had our own black everything. We didn't need anybody.
Right.
You're the Street Auburn Avenue, and we had our own black doctors and black lawyers, black everything. When I got to Ohio in college, I never heard of people just being more segregated. What did Dr. King say about Chicago, about
Oh,
Illinois?
the most segregated city you'd ever been to.
Yes.
Well,
So
it was
Atlanta has
very
always been in the groove. A city too busy to hate. We've always had everything economically. So in some ways, we were better back then. Trust me.
Yes, Yolanda?
So, George, I have a question for you. Seriously, from somebody who did experience that time back then. I I think that it is disingenuous to us as a people not to acknowledge some of the strides that we have made. For us to say, for me to say, I don't think it's fair to my grandmother to say that I have had it as hard as she had it or that her mother had it. I don't think that it's fair for me to say that. I know
You
that my opportunities are a lot better than hers
you
were.
can't say that. You cannot say that because
Right,
you have
That's
had
what she's
you
saying.
girl, you
right.
got it made. Nobody could ever say that. You have no idea how tough it was
But that's
back
what
in
I'm
the day.
saying. But I'm saying that a lot of us are saying that. A lot of us are saying, even Dr. King, we can't say that Dr. King wouldn't acknowledge some of the progress that we have made. No, that does not negate how bad things are, some of the bad and horrific things that are happening. But I just don't think that it's fair. And I think that we owe it to the people who came before us to acknowledge what they went through in comparison to what we're going through.
You're
That's
definitely
all I'm
right.
saying.
We made tons of progress. We made so much progress. But as Coy said, sometimes living today, some of the issues that we have is somewhat even worse than what we had back then. I mean, we had the police brutality, but it just wasn't reported.
Well,
Right,
yeah. So
right.
does not reporting it make it not happen?
Oh, it happened.
Right. That's what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what I'm saying
And
is just that's what I'm saying. We've made progress, but some things today is just as bad because it's being reported. And we got the video. And this thing I'm on right now on a cell phone, this has made us so much better. We see so much now. What would we be? I just wrote a bit yesterday about the cell phone as the greatest invention of all times.
would you
Yeah.
like to share it with the class, or you just want us to look forward to
Well, you
next
just
time
look,
seeing
you
it?
can just see what the phone does. I mean, and it caught a lot of things that we've done. The George Floyd situation, we were there. We were there when it actually happened.
But you know what it's taken away from, George? It's taken away from using the phone as an exclamation point. When you get off the phone and you're angry with somebody, you just can't slam the phone down. You can't, just hitting the button. That you're like, okay,
That
bye.
hitting the button is pretty funny, though. I do it with Jay Admira all the time. Does this sound like I'm hanging up on you? I mean, you can't hear it.
You have to announce it.
Does this sound like I'm hanging up on you? You can boom,
Cause I am. Um, some other things that we have in the newsletter. So you think you know Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Time Magazine had 10 facts that you may or may not have known about Dr. King. We include that in our newsletter, including. Uh, do you know what his name was when he was born, George Wallace?
Martin.
No. His father was Michael King Sr. He named his son Michael King Jr. And when Dr. King, the father, went on a religious retreat, he came back and he decided to change his name to in honor of Martin Luther and the Calvinist, and changed his son's name to Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh
And I
wow.
did read that in Georgia history. You are so right. I did read that many years ago.
Yep, yep. So that was I thought was very interesting. And also, there's an initiative by the Drum Major Institute. Take a look at that, working in concert with the National Football League, and that's George hanging up on us. The National Football League, in order to encourage young people, especially, to do acts of service, and they are aiming for 100 million acts of service in honor of Dr. King within the next 5 years before his 100th anniversary of his birthday. And so,
Wonderful.
and his son, his daughter-in-law, and the King's only grandchild, Yolanda Renee King, are all part of the Drum Major Institute and working to make this happen. And I highly encourage folks to get involved with that. So those are some of the things that we have in the What You Need to Know newsletter. Please take a look at it. And as we go through the week, we will have other items up for discussion as well, as we continue our salute and our tributes to Dr. King throughout this week. Because really, one day is not necessarily enough. And we can't ever talk
So
about him
true.
and the good works that he did. He and his wife and others in their organizations have done. So let's move to what's really going on. And George, I wanted you to come because you have this picture of the people going into the funeral of Dr. King, I believe, right? That
Yeah,
you sent to us. And Chica, if you can show us that. Okay, so you see that red circle right there.
that
George?
is George Wallace. What happened? I went to the funeral. I was at the University of Akron. I think I was a freshman. I'd come from Atlanta, 1968. And I said, oh my goodness, because we lived in Atlanta. My aunt lived across the street from Dr. King. This was just major, major. Oh my God, Dr. King is dead. We went crazy. It was the same thing as when Kennedy died.
Mhm.
Maybe even it shocked us. We were I just had to get in the car and I took my entire family from Akron, Ohio, drove down to Atlanta. We got to the funeral and I was explaining it to a friend of mine. I was at the funeral. I said, I was on a pole. I couldn't get on it. The utility pole was full. So I just jumped on another little pole and I was there at the funeral. And then they took some pictures. And they said, how about that? I said, no, that's not fair. I said, I was on a little white pole. And then they came back and showed me another picture and I started crying because they had the actual picture. I had no idea they were taking photos from inside the church out.
Mhm.
That's how they caught me on the pole. And somebody found the photo. And I cried like I feel it right now. But it was amazing to be there
Mhm.
at Dr. King's funeral. And you see some of those, that's
Nancy Wilson, Eartha
Nancy
Kitt,
Wilson,
Sammy
Eartha Kitt.
Davis,
Yeah,
Sidney Poitier.
come on now.
That's pretty amazing.
And the white man is, I forgot who he is, getting out of the car. But
Wow. Wow. So George, what were your feelings? I mean, you felt compelled to drive. I don't know what the distance was from Akron, Ohio, from
700
Cleveland
miles.
to Georgia, and no sandwiches made or anything. You
Oh
all
no,
didn't have
oh no,
time.
no. We had the shoebox in the back of the car. Shoebox. My sister was with me. My sister and her kids, Sherry and all of the young kids, they were with us. The, where you have the chicken and the pound cake
Pound
all wrapped
cake.
up
Yeah.
nicely, and the cheese all. And so we drove down, and it was so important to be there because living in Atlanta and eating at some of the restaurants like uh, the major restaurant where the blacks hung out, and being a kid, you don't realize history is being made, at Pasco's restaurant where they
Hmm.
hung out for breakfast and everything. And once again, Auburn Avenue, the Wallahaji Ballroom, the Royal Peacock, Auburn Avenue, all of that, the
I
funeral
remember
homes,
Royal
the
Peacock.
businesses, we were a part of that, and that was part of our lives. And hearing Dr. King speak every week, and we had to go to the funeral. That was part, and Dr. King had become such an important man in America. We had to be there.
Right.
Everybody had to be. It wasn't only me. People from all over the world flew in, as you can see. So it was important to be there, and we would be there today. Just think, you would be there today
Yeah. Yeah.
if you had
Just
an opportunity to
amazing.
go to his funeral. Yes,
Just
and
amazing.
I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget him in the
So,
coffin.
kind of paint a picture for us. What kind of day was it? It was April of 1968. What was the weather like? Was it a hot day? Was it a nice balmy day? What kind of because it looked like it was very sunny.
It was a very sunny day. I think we still had coats on, but it was very not really because I'm in a short sleeve shirt. So therefore, the weather was very kind to us. And the night before the funeral was at the Morehouse, they had a viewing at Morehouse College.
Hmm.
We walked to that, and from Auburn Avenue all the way to Morehouse College, and walked up
Oh
Chapel,
wow.
and that was amazing. And then the next day we came back for the funeral, and that was amazing. And they put the body on the mule and the cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing just to be there, and the crowds were tremendous, hundreds of thousands. So it was just to be in the crowd, just to be there. I can't even explain to you. Uh, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it. I'd be there.
And even and even at your age in your 30s now, you would walk that path and you would do all of the events that you did
We did
participate in
amazing
those.
things back then. Yeah, I think that must be 5 miles or something like that from from
And you weren't walking in, just your tennis shoes or something with a real soul to it to kind of, those were some floor shimes and things like that, right?
Tom McCann. Yes, from Tom
Tom
McCann.
McCann.
And floor
Walking
shine, yeah,
from Auburn
when the shoe
Avenue to
stores,
Morris.
when the shoe stores used to be together. So everybody was dressed. All of the ministers were dressed in their Sunday best, and the hard shoes. You're right, Sybil. So there's a lot of ladies, or I'm sure the ladies that went, they remember now because y'all still wear them small ass shoes too tight. So back in the day, they were too tight, and
Right,
but
right.
it was amazing to do that and to be in Atlanta. I bet every Atlantan can tell you about that day. And the weather did cooperate with us. We walked in the funeral home. He was in. You remember the funeral home every time you drive by the Hanley Brothers, H-A-N Hanley Brothers handled his body. And you walk by the coffin. The coffin was one of the first coffins with a glass cover over the body.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you would look down and you see the doctor and go like, oh my goodness. So
Wow,
not many
George.
people can say they were actually at the funeral.
That's
Right.
right.
What
That's
day
right.
was it on? What was the day?
He
Not the
was
date.
Uh,
Day.
the day of the week.
Was it during the week?
I can't remember.
I
I
want
thought
to
it was
say
on.
he was killed on a Thursday. I don't know why. I don't know why. I want to say it was April 4th, 1968 was a Thursday. So that might have been like the following week.
Yeah, it had to be the following. I think it was on a weekend day. I'm not sure, but we can look
Okay.
back and see what
But
day
I
it
mean,
was.
but the reason why I asked, I was school out. Did they not have school that day? And
No
what
school that day. Yeah,
it
everybody
was?
was out.
Everybody
It was
was
just
out.
like John. It was in Atlanta. It was bigger than John Kennedy. Let's put it like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and ooh,
And George, what was the feeling before you left campus in Ohio? Did they understand why you had to go?
well, let's put it like this. Give me the date of he got shot again. Sybil.
April 4th, 1968.
April 5. Akron, Ohio was on fire.
Oh, right. Yeah.
When I left Worcester, Worcester Avenue was on fire when I left, and when I came back, was a whole different city. Matter of fact, I'm sure you had some
We
riots
had
in
that in
Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah.
Hmm. And Yogi, are
Wow.
you from Dallas? Where are you from, Yogi?
I'm from Dallas, Fort Worth.
So I'm sure you must have had some riots there too. No,
Well, I don't know. I wasn't.
She
old
was
enough to
she was
know.
Yeah,
barely out of the
yeah,
womb.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, every city, New York, every major city had
Yeah.
war.
Detroit, Chicago,
That's
Cleveland.
when we burned our own cities. We can't do
Yeah.
that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason we burned our own city because we didn't own anything. It was the white people's stores, but we just had to do something at the time. That's the
Yeah.
Oh,
only thing I
I'm
disagree
so
with Dr.
glad you
King.
explained that. I've always wondered why we did that, but that's why we did that. We were burning down their stuff.
You know,
Yeah, but we're not realizing, so angry at the time, not realizing that I have no place to go tomorrow.
Oh, right, right. I don't
Yeah,
have
you
nowhere
just
to get. Right.
you're angry at the moment, and ooh, just to you have to retaliate in some way. That's the only thing I disagree with Dr. King. He was for nonviolence.
Mhm.
I was for nonviolence too. But then who was the other leader said you
Malcolm
gotta
X.
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X, yeah. I said, and nothing back in the day, nothing would be accomplished until after a riot or fire. Then we got things done. If we
Mhm.
when we were nonviolent, we'll wait. But I always said things do happen after a riot.
So,
Right.
Coy, let me ask you. You live in Atlanta now. When George talks about these places, and you seem to perk up when you heard some street names and things like that. What does that make you feel? I mean, obviously, this is long before you were born, but just having George kind of retell Atlanta history, was this also a conversation that you might have had with your dad or other family members about things that happened in Atlanta, such as the assassination of the funeral, I should say, of Dr. King?
yes, I talked with my dad a lot about this, and his experience was a lot different in where he grew up. He grew up about an hour south of Atlanta in Spalding County, and there was definitely a lot of racial tension there for several years, for a long time.
Yeah,
Um, and so he didn't have the luxury of having, like, there were, black businesses and things like that, but there wasn't a black street of businesses. There wasn't major associations, and he could access then and there, like just within arm's reach or a walk or something like that. There was a time where he told me about a protest that they were holding in Spalding County, and these white men got out in a pickup truck and they were just going down the line and hitting everybody. They didn't care if it was a child, man, woman, whoever, all the way down the line. Came down to my dad too. He was a teenager at the time. I think he was in the Navy when Dr. King was assassinated. And so he was made to go back to base. He might have been in Tennessee at the time as well. So he wasn't too far from the
And Tennessee was where he was assassinated in Memphis.
yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So he was somewhere near there. So I don't recall him telling me anything about the funeral, if he attended or not, because I believe he was still stationed on active duty. But a lot of these places are still around. The Royal Peacock is still there. They've opened it and closed it several times.
Yeah.
The radio station where Dr. King gave a lot of his first speeches
WERD.
Yes, WERD. They turned it into a museum for a little bit of time. I don't know if it's still open now or not. I am disappointed that his home is closed right now for renovations. It's supposed to be closed for like the next 3 years or so.
What is with that, Coy? To renovate a little small home like that 3 years when they can build an Empire State Building in 3 years?
Right. I'm not sure what that is. To me, that almost seems like they may be trying to rezone the area. They may be tearing down the homes around it, because a lot of those homes are still the original homes.
Yeah, my
that are
aunt's
there.
house across the street is still there.
Yeah.
I wonder what that property is worth, George.
Oh, that
Not
property
much.
is crazy.
Some of it is worth a lot and some of it isn't. But when
Yeah.
you go to that neighborhood, you can look at it and see what I'm saying. It shouldn't just be renovations for that home. It should be for that entire area. Because
Coy,
Auburn
believe it or not-
Avenue, all of that is
Believe it or not, those homes are worth 500,000 up. They're
Wow.
yeah, right. It's different in Atlanta and in every city. It's gone crazy. Like my neighborhood I grew up, my parents paid maybe $20,000 for their home. Every home in my neighborhood where I grew up is 800 up now.
wow.
Oh my God.
Sybil, she used the phrase, the reason her dad didn't feel it. You've heard the phrase, we live in Atlanta, they live in Georgia.
Right.
That's the difference right there.
Big
Atlanta
difference.
has always been the city too busy to hate. And at the time, as I say, the Jews and the blacks got along together. So driving Miss Daisy, you saw the scenes in Atlanta then. We were, it was just such a great city to be in. But if you lived outside of Atlanta,
Yeah. I wonder if people still watch that movie, because it really was a delightful movie, and it did show, despite what was going on racially, it did show how a black man and this old Jewish white woman, did form a connection. Yeah, and that we don't
Yes.
talk about anymore. Yeah,
well, Atlanta was like that. I can't even tell
and
you
parts
how.
of Chicago too.
Yeah. Well, Chicago and Atlanta had some of the national businesses,
Yeah,
that was good. The good jobs for
yeah.
black, good jobs. The General Motors plants were here. Everything was in Atlanta at the time. And just like Chicago, you had everything there. What do you have? Businesses there, right? Insurance
Oh,
companies.
oh yeah, right.
But as far as factories, everything. My dad was a butcher based out of Chicago, Swift and Company.
Mhm.
So
And we don't have the packing plants the way that they used to, but yeah, I understand.
that's when my daddy worked at the slaughterhouse.
And I, one of my teachers was married to the Swift family, the Swift meat packing
That's who my
company.
daddy. That's
Yeah.
who my daddy worked for.
Oh,
Is
wow.
that right? Wow, wow. So George, as we wrap this up, give us your last final impression that you want to leave with people. Here we are, 56 years ago. Uh, 56 years ago in April, since Dr. King was murdered. Just some thoughts about that you want to leave, some impressions you want to leave with people about that time or about Dr. King, whatever.
Well, it's bitter and sweet about what was happening back in the day. Like I told you, I rode the back of the bus, and the first day they integrated the buses. I sat in the middle of the bus, and an old white lady got on the bus, and she said, "Would you let me sit here?" and because the bus was full. My punk ass got up and moved back to the back of the because I was the only black kid on the bus at that day.
Right.
I wish I stood up, but I did let the lady sit down and just
But you were a gentleman. That
Yes,
that was
it wasn't
that was the other part of it.
right.
Your
okay.
parents raised you to be a gentleman, and if a lady is there, and an old white lady or an old colored lady, you were the kind of kid that would stand up and give your seat. You don't see that anymore.
Sybil, that's most important that we had back in the day. Respect
Manners,
elders,
yeah.
manners. I don't know what they use. I'm
Man.
sorry, but I never hear manners anymore. Is there such thing as manners anymore? So we had
Good
that and we
question.
respected everybody. I sat at the counter. I sat at the counter at the
Like at the
FWC,
Woolworths counter, yeah.
at the Woolworth. I sat next to a white man. He told me, son, don't you ever buy a glass of lemonade again. He says, order your water, you get your lemon, and you got free sugar. You got free sugar right there. That's a white. I never will forget that.
There's
I
your
went, oh,
lemonade.
there's your lemonade. Don't you ever pay 15 cents for a nickel for a glass of
15 cents or a nickel. And I've watched Anthony Brown do that for years.
lemonade. And you never understood why, right? Might as well, you know. But
That
living in those days, times were great back then. I was traveling when I was a kid with my parents. We traveled up to New York, and we got to New York. My uncle had a apartment on 5B up in New York, and he would come down to Georgia and flash all of his money and flash all of his new cars. And I used to think, I want to be like Uncle Sidney, never realizing that
look
my
at
dad
you.
down in Georgia owned his house.
Wow.
He wasn't paying rent.
But
And
look at you now.
everybody in our neighborhood owned a house. So it's about buying houses, and that's why Atlanta is the city it is today. That's why so many blacks are here today. It is the city for us. It's the Mecca. And as I often talk, if you want to go to Africa, I tell the people every night when I'm on stage, if you ever want to go to Africa, call Delta, and they'll fly you to Atlanta. You won't know the difference. The blacks here get along so well, as I think it was Mayor Bottoms at the time said, we've never had this to happen before until the George Floyd situation.
Mm,
Those were the people that came in, migrated from Chicago, New York, the mad, young, black, arrogant kids that set the city on fire.
wow.
We didn't understand it. But today, Atlanta's still a great city. I wish you could have lived back then in Atlanta, how we just owned everything. You know,
Right.
just everywhere you could go from Hunter Street to Pascal's restaurant. Everybody know about Pascal's now, but the churches we had, it's just a good time to live.
George, thank
Not as
you for
good as
sharing your memories. I really appreciate that.
not as good as it is now. It's still a great city, Atlanta is. And
Yeah.
boy,
Yeah.
tell your dad to move into the city.
Well, she is moving into her dad's home and making efforts to keep that legacy alive too. So that's a great
That's right.
thing. George, I know you're on your way for vacation, but as we move into trending topics, do you have any comedy dates? I know you had a great weekend last weekend with Marsha Warfield.
We were in Akron, Ohio. Thank all the people in Akron and people from Cleveland actually drove down to Akron. They never do that. It's always Akron can going up to Cleveland for everything. It was cold, so it was the first day of the real cold weather. It was 9. I think it's lower than that now.
Wow.
I think it's like 2 in Chicago right now. But that it bothered them in a way, you know, especially my crowd. They're a little older,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had great crowds. So it was wonderful. In Chicago, the younger people they put the coats on, they go out no matter what. So, but
And Jay said the same thing. He was in Indiana, and the weather did not keep people home. Janice Eatman on Facebook said, "Hey family, I'm way late. So good to see everyone. Rolled from the land to see Dr. Wallace and Marsha Warfield in Akron on Saturday, and welcome him back home to Ohio. I appreciate this living history being shared. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you,
and let's make
George.
it perfectly clear: we were at LeBron James's club. The
Hmm.
House 330, LeBron James, it's the most beautiful place. It's a museum also. It's right next door to his school, I Promise School,
Hmm.
right next door, and the cemetery is next to it.
Wow,
But
wow,
it's
from the
beautiful.
cradle
It's
to the
beautiful.
grave. Wow."
There's some history
Hmm.
there.
So,
So,
George, how's Marsha Warfield? And please tell her when you talk to her, I'm really loving seeing her on Night Court. She's
she's,
her character Roz has been back, and I just really enjoyed that.
she's such a wonderful character, wonderful person too. And she'll come on here anytime we ask.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah, she's been very generous with her time. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to go on vacation, and then do you have anything long term? Any dates you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm going to be all over Florida in February. And
Good time.
yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun there. And we got dates in coming up in Austin, Texas, all over the place. Detroit.
Okay.
I'll come back on and promote them. I'll let you know.
I know you will. I know you will.
Yeah, so
Friday night, I went to see Two Funny Mamas. Kim Whitley and Sherry Shepherd were
are you
in Dallas.
serious?
Yeah, they were in Dallas performing, and it was a great show. It was a
That
really
must have
great
been
show.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you get a chance to see them, definitely go. They perform together, they perform separately, and it's a great time. And if you are a subscriber to their podcast, it's a lot of that. Just the craziness between the two of them. Great
Yeah,
stories.
busy, busy, busy. I think.
Very, very, yeah, absolutely. So
I,
George, you mentioned the weather, and Chicago has a big old goose egg right now. It's zero with the wind chill. It's about -6 degrees, 6 degrees below zero with the wind chill. A
Mm-mm.
massive wave of Arctic air sweeping down on the jet stream, gripping a wide swath of the country today as temperatures plummeted to 20 to 40 degrees below normal. That was fueled by the howling winds that placed almost half of all Americans under wind chill watches and warnings. As a matter of fact, some 150 million people are under weather alerts. That's 45% of the nation's population under a wind chill warning or advisory for the dangerous cold and wind, according to the National Weather Service. And George, weather related delays, flight delays, and some
yes,
cancellations brought havoc to the airlines and airports. And that was starting last week, as a matter of fact.
right.
Um, More than 9,600 flights within, into, or out of the U.S. have already been delayed or canceled by 5 o'clock this afternoon, and more than 10,000 flights were disrupted each of the last 2 days. The sub zero temperatures
Oof.
and cold winds prevailed today as wind chills, and through today and tomorrow as they dip 30 degrees below zero
Mm-mm.
across the
Mm-mm.
And,
state
Mm-mm.
and
Mm-mm.
minus
it's,
50
it's,
in Montana and the Dakotas.
and it's still the
Tennessee,
warmest. It's still the warmest winter on Earth.
because of the climate change.
Is it really?
That's
Yes,
what
it's
they're
still
trying to
the
tell us.
warmest.
But I don't know. I Do you
You don't
believe
believe
that,
in
George?
climate change? Every Christmas, don't you see polar bears drinking Coca-Cola yogurt?
Yeah.
But let me say this: do you ever sit back and realize and appreciate what heat is to us? You can go into a warm home
Yes.
and enjoy it. You can walk around in your underwear and your drawers with the heat. I appreciate little simple things like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do.
And in Texas, we have this grid, this electric grid. It makes everybody scared to turn the heat up in their house because it was a couple of winters ago that power went out in Texas and
Sure
people
did.
were without for
That was
several days at a
horrible.
time. And so everybody's trying to stay under the grid and the extreme heat patterns and what have you in your home. Um, Check this out: a mix of sleet, snow, and freezing rain rolling through the Tennessee Valley into the Gulf Coast states, all the way to Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York. New York City has already announced school closing ahead of tonight's storm.
Woo.
Chicago Public Schools, the fourth largest in the country, are closed tomorrow, along with school districts in Dallas County and Arlington Independent School District canceled Tuesday classes because of the cold weather. And they were already closed today in honor of the holiday. But Metro Nashville Public School and dozens of other districts around that state of Tennessee announced that they would be closed Tuesday and many on Wednesday too. And Old Beale Street came to a close, where that's normally where a lot of people go for music and entertainment. Everything was shut down there
But
as
you can still get some barbecue.
well.
They got all the barbecue in the world is in Memphis, Tennessee.
And George, you are going to a warm weather climate. How's the weather in Australia? Have you checked?
I didn't check yet. I checked all of the cold places, but I was trying to find my phone to check it.
Oh, how's your phone? George's phone has been sick.
My phone has been sick, and I missed your text. Have you ever lost messages on your phone?
No.
You text me today, and I didn't get it. You sent me the
Right,
link, and I didn't get it.
right.
But I was looking for my phone, Sybil, to find out what the weather is in New Zealand. I was looking for the
So
phone.
wait. You're on your way, but you haven't checked the weather?
I know it's summer, young lady. You know it's summer down there.
But
You
is
know
it
it's gonna be.
raining? But hold on. I don't really go by. I don't necessarily check the weather where I'm going either. So that's why I'm asking. Do you?
That's
I
crazy.
really do that, Yogi. I always check the weather, but I know it's summer in Australia.
Oh, okay.
George, right
Without a
now at the
doubt. Anywhere
Sydney
in South
airport is
America, below
75
the
degrees.
equator. Below the equator. Did you go to school in Texas also? Below the equator, there's a
Okay, but Sybil say it's 70 what?
75 degrees at the Sydney
Okay, for some
airport.
people that's kind of cool. So are you gonna take a jacket? So you don't think about all of that. But you got so much money, you can buy whatever you need wherever you go.
girl, I can buy heat. I can buy air conditioning.
That's how rich
Yes,
he
you
is.
can.
George can
Y'all
buy
stupid.
heat.
Y'all are stupid. No, but
Yes, you can,
75 is
George
decent.
Wallace.
75 is decent. It might be 77 in Honolulu, which is always nice no matter what.
I
But
can tell you that in a second too, if you like. But yes,
she has two phones. She has two phones because I'm talking on my phone, trying to find it. I'm getting
Lahaina
old.
right now it's 76 degrees.
Okay.
Maui.
Whew.
What? But it's nice in Los Angeles now, right?
It's 64 in Palm
Yeah.
Springs.
I
Oh,
think it's 76 in Miami, 77 in Miami.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And it's 22 degrees in Fort Worth, Texas.
That's cold for you, right, Sybil?
It's a little chilly. It's a little chilly.
Well, 22, anything below, but it feels like, as George Wallace would say,
Right.
it feels like 17.
And
If
it's
it
70
feels like it
degrees
must
in
be.
Los Cabos.
Mm.
So, a couple other things I do want to talk to you about. Thank goodness the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Austin, General Austin, is home. He was released from the hospital and he'll be working from the house for the next couple of days. He was released from Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. He continues to recover well and, on the advice of doctors, will recuperate and perform his duties remotely from a period of time from the house before returning full time to the Pentagon. He has full access to the required secure communication capabilities. And they said that he was fine after the surgery, but developed an infection that took them a while to fully disperse of.
So
And
he's been in the hospital for all this time?
since the first of the year, yeah,
That's a long time.
yeah.
Wow.
And as you
Don't
get
say it like
older,
that, Yogi. He went in for a prostate problem. And you
Right,
don't want people to know, you don't want people to know your little
right,
secrets, you know. And I
right.
think he was okay when he went in, but he developed that
infection.
The
Man.
infection that had nothing to do with the prostate situation, right?
When you go to the hospital,
I'm
you
not
don't know
sure.
what's going to happen to you. More infections in the hospital than anywhere else. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
that's
when
right,
COVID.
George. I believe that.
Yeah,
I know.
it's kind of like when COVID. That's the last place you wanted to go was to the doctor because that's where the disease was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it is.
Mm, mm, mm. Well, we wish him speedy recovery. And tomorrow, George, wherever you are, tune in and watch us. We're going to be talking with my friend Brian Custer, who had prostate cancer many years ago when he was a much younger man and unusually young, from what I understand. But he has made a great recovery and preaches the gospel of getting checked and doing what you can to take care of your body in the event of a case of prostate cancer. So he's going to be on with the guys talking about that tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to reconnecting with him. Tonight, I will be watching, so you don't have to, the Iowa caucuses. This is the Republicans that are going, and the caucuses are completely unlike anything that we're accustomed to. You don't just go in and put your vote. You go in, you tell them who you want, and then you caucus, and the candidates will talk to you and ask for your vote. You'll place your vote, then they take your vote, they count it, and then you it kind of go through a process before they finally come up with who's going to get the most votes, who's going to get the second place, and who's going to get the third. Now, what's going to make a difference in all of this, just so you'll know, and what to expect tomorrow, I would say, and this is just my unprofessional opinion, don't expect Donald Trump to get the numbers that he's been getting in the polls over the last 3 months.
Okay.
Um, because,
I think
first
you're
of all,
right.
people will tell pollsters anything. And secondly, Iowa is going through an absolutely horrific weather system. They have had inches of snow, below zero temperatures, and with the wind chill. And and it's not as if you can go during the day. In a matter of minutes, they're going to open the doors for people to come inside. None of this starts until 7 p.m. Central Time. And so it's dark, it's cold, and people will be like, they'll be all right. They don't need my vote.
Where
So,
is Iowa? Is that next to Illinois?
yes, it's in the Midwest.
Marshall Warfield used to say, "Why are there black people in Iowa?" And why?
4% of the population is black, George, in Iowa. And my mom went to graduate school there and met one of her husbands. That's a whole nother story. I don't
That's
even
just
know
one of
why.
those
That's a
states I
whole
have
nother
no
story.
reason to
That's
be.
a whole nother story. I wanted to. Your
George,
mom went to graduate school in Iowa?
yeah.
Oh, Sybil, I did not know that. So I
And
know more about you now.
and no, well, it wasn't my father. It wasn't my dad. This was before she met my dad. This was husband. I think it was husband number 1 or 2. I'm not sure.
But you should know that.
I don't.
You should know which husband. But Sybil, it's nice. I can't imagine having parents that were college
Right.
graduates. I'm sorry. My parents were the greatest parents in the world. But had they gone to school?
Just imagine,
Right.
George. We wouldn't even be able to talk to you right now.
My head would be so big, right?
Yeah. Right.
I would be
Right.
like I would know everything. I'd be like Travis Smiley.
Oh my. Okay.
Not
Let's
Tabby
move.
Smiley.
Let's move to entertainment right quick, George. What do
Okay,
you think?
Ricky Smiley.
No, you were right the first time. So George, the Green Bay Packers came in and walloped the Dallas Cowboys. What do you think?
Simple. I saw that yesterday. Did I text you? Because I'm going, oh my God, they're killing them.
They killed them. And that's all I wanted Dallas to do. Dallas doesn't have to do anything for me ever again if they had just beat the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers were the sworn enemies. Everybody has those rivalries, and Dallas and Chicago were big rivals. That's all I wanted was for
Love did it. Love did it. Love did it.
Yeah. And Jordan Love was also a hero on and off the field. He stopped on his way to catch the plane to Dallas to help a young woman whose car was stranded in a bank of snow, in a snowbank. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so he's quite the hero both on and off the field. Yeah,
Remember, we used to
Jordan Love.
do that, help people that's stuck in snow, get out and push the car and do that.
Yep, yep.
We did it in the mud in Georgia. You did it in the ice and snow.
Right. And you try to keep kitty litter and pieces of cardboard in your car so that you could grasp and get a grip and kind of move your car out of all of that. That's
Yeah,
part
she
of your
said kitty litter. Yes, she
winterizing
did.
package.
Kitty litter. Yes, she
Yeah.
did say that.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Kitty litter and cardboard.
Used kitty litter.
George and Coy, we're continuing our tributes to Dr. King, and today Yolanda has provided the Yogi's Jewel is one of Dr. King's sayings. Yolanda, do you have it?
Yes. I think he said no. The most persistent and urgent question of the day is, what service are you doing for others?
Yep.
That's right.
It's about the service.
It's about the service. That's a day on. I can't imagine having this day off. For as long as I have worked for Tom Joyner, I've had a day on. I've worked for 30 years on Dr. King's birthday, and it is about going out and doing for others. And so think about that. How are we going to perform service in Dr. King's name, especially as we get involved with this project with the Drum Major Initiative? Yes, Yolanda.
Can we say Happy Founders Day to our friends at for AKA?
Yes, the Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Today is Founders Day. We did our friends at Delta Sigma Theta the other day, and we continue, and especially to our friend Dr. Glenda Glover, who is not only was the president of the AKAs, but also the president, and she is going to be leaving her post at Tennessee State, and we just love and appreciate
Wonderful
you,
woman.
Dr. Glover. We appreciate you absolutely. Coy, are you soror?
I am, but not.
Yes and no, Coy.
Because nobody knows this organization. It's fairly new. It just became a Greek, recognized Greek.
So are you part
co-ed
of the Divine?
fraternity.
Are you part of the Divine
No,
now?
it's not the Divine. No.
Are you G5G?
No.
Is that what it is? Oh, okay. Well,
What about you two? What about you two?
No, I'm not. I'm not. My
Not
mom
yet.
was
The four of
AKA.
us, nobody joined this fraternity.
You didn't, George?
I figured I know these people. Well, let me tell
I
you the truth.
joined.
Ain't
It's just not
nobody
a
gonna whoop
divine
my
nine.
ass. Ain't nobody gonna whoop my ass to be their brother. That's the bottom line. That's why I didn't do it. Because back in the day, they would do that. You know,
Right.
they would have
Right.
a board. They not call it a charcuterie board. That's the same board they whoop your ass with. They take that charcuterie board and beat your ass with it. Am I right, Sybil?
Right. You're right, George.
That's what it looks
All
like.
right, George Wallace.
A big
They
old
put some keys
charcuterie
on the
board,
same
and
board.
they
They whoop my ass with. It ain't gonna happen. But I would go to all of the
You-
fraternity frat parties. I did everything. I went everywhere at the University of Akron.
safe travels, George Wallace. We love you. We thank you for the memories today. We appreciate you. And everybody go out there and do something nice for someone else in honor of Dr. King. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Aloha. Safe travels,
There's
George.
absolutely nothing you can do.